Not really. I mean, I just got through recording, which you won't see, but I just got through recording a VidDevoPerspective, and it was talking about self-esteem and the analogy of how we should not esteem ourselves, but how God esteems us is more important. And it was kind of a neat study. You know, God was speaking to me while I was going through it, and you know, I was kind of sharing as it came right out of my mouth. I was listening, so to speak, and it was kind of like, wow, that's kind of cool, you know. So I was going on, you know, and the sun came up over the mountain, and I was kind of enjoying, you know, the morning, and just really kind of relaxed, you know, and just kind of going, this is nice, you know, just peaceful. And I talked about peace. And so then when I got done, I got up, you know, and go back into the computer to turn off the recording, and sure enough, there's a warning sign on my screen saying, "Warning, this video is not recording sound." Which leads me to this recording. How do you deal with stress? How do you react to things not going the way you planned? How do you adjust your attitude to deal with actions and circumstances that are beyond your control? Oh, you could, you know, get mad, I guess. You know, you could get frustrated and say, "Oh man, you know, I know that, you know, I set that recording up, and sure enough, I'm positive I checked the camera and I checked the sound, and you know, that little camera thingy, you know, it should have been working." Well, that's one way. Or I could go, "Oh, that devil, man, he attacked my camera. He put that, you know, curse on it, and he made it act up, you know, because he's just trying to afflict me. So I'm putting up my shield of faith, and I'm going to act like a Christian and cast him out in the name of Jesus." Well, I guess that's one way too. You know, there's a lot of ways you could react to it, I guess. You know, you could kind of like, you know, plan out, you know, and coordinate your double check, triple check, you know, kind of checklist, so that every day that you wake up, you know, you go through your checklist to make sure that everything's checked. Check. You know, and me speaking as a network engineer, checkmate, guess what? Even if you did all those checks, sometimes it would still happen. So the point is you learn, if you're a Christian for very long, that lots of things are going to come up and upset your apple cart. Lots of things are going to happen in life that are going to change your plans. Jesus had a way of saying it, that the wind blows whither it will. You neither know where it's coming from nor where it's going. So too is everyone led by the Spirit of God. I like to turn my circumstances, whether they're good or whether they're bad, back to God and let Him get the credit or the challenge of it to resolve it, rather than have me try to interpret it. Because you see, if I try to interpret my circumstances, I can come up with all kinds of millions of ideas about why or what happened. And none of them could be correct. Because God may be at times doing things I have no concept of. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 actually warns me of trying to do things my way. It tells me to trust in Him, but to not lean on my own understanding. So whenever I think that I should lean into my own understanding, I usually have a warning program that goes off in my own spirit, so to speak, or my own mind, that says, "Warning, your thinking is stinking thinking, and you need to think of it in a different way." And I kind of go back to God and say, "Oh, Lord, you know, what did happen?" Sometimes He tells me, sometimes He doesn't. But I never really presume to know automatically that what happened was either somebody's fault or something else going on. When I look at the Bible, I can read something in Job that's very fascinating to me, that changed my whole perspective about life in general. It completely, well, it made me think about the Greek mythology, you know, where the Greek gods were playing games and all that stuff. But anyways, Job inspired me by recognizing sometimes things are happening that have nothing to do with what we are experiencing. In other words, God, at the beginning of Job, has a conversation with Satan. It says that the sons of God presented themselves before God, you know, and among them was Lucifer, or Satan. And he's an angel, a fallen angel, rebellious, and he's trying to, accomplish his purposes. And he's kind of pulled a fast one on everybody, and he's the God of this world temporarily. But the point is, he comes before God. He says, hey, here I am. I'm here too with the sons of God. God says, hey, have you checked out my servant Job? Man, there is no one like him in all the earth. And Satan says, no way. Give me a break. He says, you've got him so protected and packed up and packaged that, man, of course he's your man because you've got him covered. Now, if he was really your man, then I could do something to him and he would curse you before God and before all of creation. And he says, God says, try it, but don't kill him. And so Satan, believe it or not, is given, and this is the weirdest thing, but it's for our benefit, freedom to go and do anything to poor old Job, who doesn't know what the, pardon the expression, what the hell is going on. But it's true. Hell was going on with him. And here, one minute, he gets a servant that comes in and says, hey, we just came from the fields. All your oxen have just been wiped out by a tornado. Another one comes from, hey, we just came from, the city and all of your businesses have been destroyed by a hailstorm. Another one comes in and says, hey, all your kids just got killed by, invading Canaanites. Another one comes up and says, hey, your wife is still alive. Oh my God, no. Oh well, it could only be so bad. But the point is that Job had all these things happening, one right after the other, just boom, 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 boom. And so God had allowed Satan to cause circumstances in Job's life to test him. And then Job winds up with boils and all these kind of horrible things, and he goes sits on a dung heap, and then the worst thing of all, here come the Christians. Here come the Christians. Here come the Christians. Christians, they came alongside Job to encourage him, to have faith with him, to believe with him, to encourage him, pray for him, to stand with him in his time of need. Not! They might have started off that way, it does say that they sat with him for, I think, a few days before they finally opened their mouth. But if you've read Job, then you know that they weren't exactly the best of friends, they were supposed to be, but even they got a little disgusted with Job after a while because, first of all, they told Job what they thought the circumstances of his life were about and why Job was wrong in his life, how he had to be sin in his life, how things had to be going wrong for Job. And God had already told Satan, Job is right. So the long story short is, you really don't know what's going on. You may think you've got a handle on life. You may think you've got a handle on everything around you. Let me put this perfectly clear. You haven't a clue what's going on. God's the one who said it. He said, my thoughts aren't your thoughts, neither are my ways your ways. You don't have a handle on what I'm doing. You don't know what my plans are. I will share with you to do what I say, but I'm not going to tell you my full counsel. And Jesus said he entrusted himself to no man, for he knew what was in the heart of man. Because if we knew everything that God was doing, we'd screw it up, get in the way, kind of mess it up. It's kind of like with these elections, People, if they knew really that God is the one who puts in charge people in charge of countries, in charge of nations, all that kind of stuff, sets up magistrates, causes people to really, in their heart of hearts, to run for office, and then influences people to elect them. Well, do you think that God didn't put the current president in office? I think you might have a problem here, Houston, that maybe he's not there for the reason you think, but he might be there for another reason that I like to throw out at Christians and say, hey, God may have put that man in office just to test your heart to see if you'll trust him or if you'll trust man. If you will hate or you will love. If you will bless or you will curse. And your heart will be revealed by how you dealt with this person in office. And so, for me, I kind of laugh at all the frustration that people feel about the current situation in the country. God said, hey, look, if you want to be blessed, this is how you do it. If you want to be cursed, this is how you do it. We personally, as a country, are the most spoiled, wealthiest, richest, and even when we're supposedly having a hard time, quite frankly, if you moved around in the country, you'd find there are jobs around, and there are places to work, and there are things to do, and you could make money, and you could lower your standard of living and still live. In the world, there are places where you can't do that. When there are no jobs, there are no jobs. And that's why you see some of the violent revolts and some of the violence that happens in the world, because they don't have anything to do at all. They can't make a living because of their climate or their environment or the way that the country's set up or structured. So the reality of our situation never is what we think we know. It's rather who we know that we can ask what's going on to. And that's what happened with my recording today, is that it could be that God didn't want that recording. That I've done pieces on self-esteem and God's esteem, and maybe that's enough. Or maybe, and I could go on with the babies. But none of those things were as important as my reaction. My reaction was, oh well. In other words, when I found out that the recording hadn't recorded the sound, I didn't lose it. I didn't abuse it. I didn't curse. I didn't contemn or condemn. I laughed. I thought it was funny. I just went, oh well. And I do that a lot on the web. I just put down oh well at times, and people don't get what I'm talking about. But for me, oh well is kind of like, hey, God knows. I'm not worried about it. Oh well, he's in control. I gave him control 35 plus years ago, And in my life, I figured out that, whether I participated with him or didn't, he still accomplished what he wanted in my life and about my life and through my life. Whether I participated with him or not was usually whether I got blessed or whether I was used anyways. And that's kind of where you're at. It's like, hey, you can get with the program and just kind of like enjoy it and enjoy the ride, and be fascinated with what God will do. Or you could panic. You can fear. You can have anxiety attacks. You can worry. You could stress. You could look like a worldly person. Kind of like, oh my God, did you hear what happened overseas? They're going to do this and they're going to do that. Oh no, did you hear what the government's going to do? They're going to do this. They're going to do that. Oh my God, did you do this? And I always want to ask them, did you hear what God said He will do? I mean, come on. If people as Christians are more worried about what other people do and not what God can do, I think they missed the point of being a Christian. You see, the Christian is the person who doesn't fear these things that are coming upon them. The Christian is the person who, when trials come and tribulations, they count it all joy. They rejoice in those things that come upon them because they get an opportunity to see how God will deliver them. They get a chance to see how God will reveal Himself in the circumstances. They get to learn something from it. They have a weird way of looking at life in general, which in a lot of ways has to do with learning and lessons. Because life is about learning, and the process of learning is our wisdom that we accumulate through our life experiences. We will use those things in heaven. They will be profitable to us. They will be a part of our existence in eternity. And so we won't stop learning when we get to heaven. We're not going to know it all when we get there. That's foolishness. I don't know who ever first conceived of that idea, but nowhere does the Bible say that. It says that when He shall appear, we shall see Him face to face, and we shall be like Him. But even as the Father kept some things from the Son, so too there's some things that we won't know, that God will be continually revealing to us throughout eternity. That's why the word for eternity is called ages to ages in Hebrew. It means you're going from ages to ages to ages to ages to ages life that never ends. And because it's called ages to ages life, that means in every age there is something happening. Like people say we're in the age of grace, or people say we're in the age of the church, or we're in, old age, young age, middle age, whatever. But the point is that the ages keep going. So once this time period that we're living in, the church age, kind of is raptured away, so to speak, then the kingdom age happens for 1,000 years on the earth, where Jesus sets up his kingdom. Wow, cool. For 1,000 years there's this age going on, and we're learning things then. Then after that, we're told there's a new heaven and a new earth. And that's a new age. And we'll be going into a new age then, and constantly learning. And then after that new age, there's a newer new age, and a newer new age. Now, we won't sin and deal with that because we're told that's cast away. But we will be learning something and growing and knowing. And it's almost like that whole idea that, you know, the Confucianism, Taoist, kind of Buddhist, kind of reincarnate thing. Well, they didn't really get it. They kind of like screwed it up and made it into something it's not. But if you could take that little tiny part of it and then apply it to what God said about eternity, then you got it. You're at least pretty much close to it. And that's what it means by learning constantly and going through these ages. And that's why in circumstances like the camera not recording or the volume not recording, I learned from that. I learned not just to make sure the camera is set up, because it could be Satan doing a number, it could be a glitch, it could be any number of little things. So I just learn whatever I can from it and rejoice in it, because I count it all joy. I have to remind myself that the importance isn't so much the recording as it is my actions with God. Because I don't ever need to react to anything in my life, but I do need to act upon what God tells me. I do need to act with God in how He shows me things and reveals to me His will. I do need to act upon what He has said is true for my life. And that's why you should not be guided by reactions to negative circumstances and say, oh, I'm just going to use the power of positive thinking. Well, no, you're going to have some negative things happen. And guess what? You might have a negative reaction. Good. I hate people that tell me, oh, well, you got to look on the bright side. No, I don't. I could look on the dark side. I could look on the shadow side. I could look on any side I want to. I see something in it because God is in hell, God is in heaven, God is everywhere. God speaks to us irregardless of where we're at. He'll still talk to us. We're going to deal with Him on a face-to-face basis. But the reality of knowing that means that I can accept from His hand anything that comes my way, whether life or death, whether principalities or powers, spiritual wickedness. None of that can separate me from the love of God that He has for me. I am always assured of that. So my confidence is always in every circumstance. Not only can I rejoice, which is kind of, absurd to most people, but what sounds a little strange is I can even give thanks for not having that recording go through. Just means I get to do another one. Praise the Lord.